Exactly when it starts. Hello, this is John Canali with Around Town Properties and Model Mortgage, Grace Mark. And once again, this Wednesday at noon, I'm here live with you on Facebook. I can't stress how much I get nervous every time I get started, but then as we go through the process, I get a little bit more calm and recollected, basically. But anyways, I'm here again today with another show for you, and I am going to be presenting today selling your home hacks. Okay, so basically, I'm going to give you tips, a few things that we need to be talking about and know in regards to selling your home. And also, I have here an opportunity. If you find this live feed, there is going to be in the description a link where you can join the meeting as we go and ask questions about selling your home. It'll be great to come in. Somebody come in today. Again, once again, this week my invitations failed and I had no guests over. So you learn as you go and you try your best. And sometimes you have those out there, they're afraid to come in on live and they're afraid of the camera, or they are afraid of saying something that can be questionable, and there's also the superiority issues among some friends here. I know they in this platform here, I'm in command, and some of them are just like, no, 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 I have to be in command or I look bad. That sort of thing, man. Just please wash it off. Come on, man. We're just hanging out here and discussing a couple of things. And of course, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. Sometimes I say stupid things. Sometimes I make mistakes. Like, for instance, last week, it was funny. I thought last weekend was Father's Day for some reason. So I wished everybody would have a great Father's Day weekend. But on that note, happy Father's Day to those of you. There are fathers or fathers to be. I guess everybody, one point or the other, becomes a father, I hope. And then I hope my dog doesn't bark through the day today. But this weekend, coming weekend, is Father's Day weekend. And please have fun, enjoy your family, and hopefully they give you a bunch of surprises. Good ones, at least. I know my kids have sometimes the ability to give me great surprises. All right. Anyways, so home buying hacks is what I do almost every weekend or every week. Sorry. But today it's all about sellers. And hopefully, I invited a couple of people. Hopefully, they come in on board. I'll be able to see here on my screen if they do, and I will invite them in to maybe talk a little bit in regards to that effect. Okay. One thing for sure, I need to be very clear here for this first couple of minutes of the show. I must say that I'm not a lawyer. I am a real estate agent, however, and I am not here to give you any legal advice. Okay, so do not construe this as legal advice. And because this next couple of things I'm going to say is a little bit delicate as far as the representation of the laws, okay, involving this. Okay, so selling a home is quite a important task, as important as buying a home, if not more. It's definitely when you have the greater risk. The risk is mostly in your plate. So it is something that you need to be aware of, and having a good representation is the most important thing. So you have a choice to straight up hiring what most people do, hiring a real estate agent. Of course, check their credentials, their expertise and experience, their past reviews, just to be sure that you're with the right person. However, you also have the choice of hiring a lawyer. Okay. Can the cost be different? Yes, you can have definitely a lot more cost involved by hiring an attorney as opposed to your local and state commissions you pay a real estate agent. Okay. Um, another good point here, hiring a real estate agent, you're going to assure yourself that you're going to have a much better direct contact with your real estate agent. You're going to likely get the phone calls answered and your emails answered in a timely manner, as opposed to maybe, and I mean going out on a limb here by saying, as opposed to maybe that lawyer concept that you can hardly ever get them on the phone, or that one voicemail message that you left you costs you money. So I never hired an attorney to sell my house, but it is a choice. You have that choice, okay? Or you can have both, an attorney that's just there to review everything your agent is doing, okay? And sometimes that could be very, very useful. Okay, so again, I'm not a lawyer, and please do not construe this as any legal advice, but I want to be clear about that. Sellers and buyers have different needs and different motivations when it comes to selling their home or buying a home, okay? The sellers naturally wants to sell the home as is, okay? And buyers just as naturally, okay, want the seller to have full transparency when they're selling their home. Very, 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 very important, okay? Because problems can arise if the sellers doesn't meet the obligations of disclosure, properly disclosing their home, okay? And I'm going to step back, as sensitive as it is, I'm going to step back and read here real quick what section 5.008 of the property code states, okay? Assign to seller's disclosures notice. It's a form that each state is going to promulgate one for you to use when selling your home. Your agents can very much pick up a copy of that, and they have access to it and give it to you. Okay, so is required. This notice is required in most residential sales pursuant to section 5.008 of the property code, okay? So 5.008 common A says a seller of residential real estate property comprising not more than one dwelling unit located in the state shall give to the purchaser of the property a written notice as prescribed by this section, or a written notice substantially similar to the notice prescribed by the section, which contains at minimum all of the items in the notice prescribed by the section. Okay, so that notice form is usually pre-written and have questions on it. And it sort of guides you, the seller, to how to best answer and give information to the buyers, okay? The real estate agent or attorney cannot tell you what to write on this form. They cannot advise you whether you should write or not write on this form. It has to be naturally be filled out with nothing but the truth about this home, your knowledge about the home, okay? And here I state another thing. Property Code 5.008 common 7 common D states that the disclosure notice shall be completed to the best of the seller's belief and knowledge as of the date the notice is completed and signed by the seller. If the information required by the notice is unknown to the seller shall indicate that fact on the notice. Basically say, if there's a question, hey, how old is your roof? And you don't know, you just say unknown, I don't know, okay? For one, you're likely not a roofer to know how old is your, or the conditions, or how old is the roof, okay? Unless obviously you have record that you're the one that last changed the roof. But maybe you purchased a home, the roof was already there, and you don't know from the previous seller when the roof was redone or replaced or repaired, okay? And by that act is in compliance with this section, okay? The standard is the belief and knowledge of the seller, specifically referring to items listed in disclosure itself. So sellers need to be real careful when filling out this form. In other words, if your home I'm just going to give you a couple of examples here, okay? your home flooded and you clearly had flooding damage in your house, okay? Not disclosing that information is breaking the rules of the property code section 5.008, okay? So in other words, if you have knowledge that your home flooded, you must indicate that on the form. And another thing that comes up quite a bit is termites. Okay, so you know that while you lived in this property, there were termites in this home. Okay, you treated those termites and you got rid of the termites and you repaired anything that had related to termite damages. That's actually a big one. There's a ton of lawsuits in regards to that out there, and I'm not here to recite any of them. But you need to disclose that you had termite damages and you treated for termites and you repaired the termites and when you did it. Okay. If you just treat it because you thought maybe you had termites, but no visible knowledge of termite damage, but you just, for the sake of it, treat it, you must disclose that as well. So there's a ton of things in that on that seller's disclosure notice form that you are going to be asked, and you need to be as transparent as possible. Okay, or you can risk yourself from, and there's a number of ways. So there's no way exactly how we're going to find out whether you were truthful on that form or not. But you know what? It always comes down to the buyer's relationship with this home afterwards and what they find that made them believe that you were deceitful. Okay, so that's another thing. Or you can be sued and under the Deceptive Trade Practices of Consumer Protection Act. Okay, so that could be a problem for you. So be really careful when filling out that form. All I can say is that if you do not know, and exactly what I said here, if you do not, or it said here, if you do not know about an issue, just say unknown. If you're not sure, just say unknown. Okay, you're not sure. You're not an expert in that field. Do you have any foundation issues in your home? Well, are you a foundation expert? Go look at it. I guess, see if you have any cracks. And if you do, be sure to put it on the seller's disclosure notice. And one common thing I see it all the time is cracks in the driveway. I've seen so many sellers disclosure notices that had cracks on the driveway, just to be safe, in case this buyer ever said, well, I walked in that driveway and I never seen a crack. And of course, in the seller's disclosure notice, the seller never said there was cracks on the driveway. And then you question, you walked in that driveway, you really didn't pay attention, huh? You didn't see any cracks on the driveway. Okay, but they can come after the seller because you didn't put it in the, that day I had some issues with my eyes. I couldn't see anything. That could happen. So if you have cracks in your homes and you have settling issues that are mostly just cosmetic, maybe you should consult your lawyer or consult your real estate agent whether you should put those or not. Okay, but anyways, this episode here, and let me go into my Facebook account here, see if they have any questions. I really want someone to join me today and see if you can participate in this event today. And I don't see any questions as of right now, but I'll be watching for one here and seeing if anybody want to tune in and ask questions. Okay, but either way, this is the caveat for some individuals that are more experts in selling their homes than even I am. Okay, I do have expertise in selling homes, and I've sold many homes, but I do know folks that sold over 3,000 homes, and and I wish they were here in the program today, but they couldn't. Okay, they were away from a possible internet or phone connection today. Didn't work. Okay, but I wanted to give this material to you because I put together things last minute. I'll be honest with you, I put things together. These shows I've been putting together last minute. I'm like maybe 1 or 2 days before I'm typing it up. Like today I decided to do the selling your home hacks last minute. I lost one of my invitation like it happened last week. I invited someone else with very short notice. She said, I'm going to think about it. She never got back to me because, again, everybody have their own fears and whatever that is. Just wash it, put it aside. Come on board with me and let's talk about real estate. Come on. Anyways, I gotta say this. Okay, so one of the things that you can rely on is you have access to a lot of information on Google. I've said that before. You can just type up how to prepare my home for sale, and there's going to be a ton of information there. Okay, or you can just hire a real estate agent if you're ready to sell your house. Why even listen to me right now? This is really just preparation that maybe you can, however, compare my information to those of the real estate agent you hire and see whether he's on point with everything I'm talking about, or maybe he's better than I am. Who knows? Sometimes they may have more knowledge than I do. Okay. But I'm here to bring you as much knowledge as possible. And I'm going to set up here a couple of things that we need to know. Okay. So, on the subject of self-disclosures, notice for one thing that I think it's very useful for all sellers to think about, and this is maybe a couple of weeks before selling their homes, a few weeks sometimes it's needed. You want to identify repairs. Okay. Well, as you already know, your buyer may or may not, but they likely will inspect your home. They're going to hire a professional inspector, a licensed inspector, to come out to your home for at least 3 to 4 hours. He's going to touch every little inch of your home. And believe me, there's going to be little things that you lived there for 10 years and you never noticed. It's going to be in there. Okay. At least if that inspector is pretty good. But there's sometimes a lot of random things that they put on there, and then sometimes there are things that they're notorious to have there. Okay, and every home is going to carry that same thing. And I got to tell you, I don't care how new your home is, there's always going to be something coming out on that inspection report. Always. I've seen short lists. Okay, but I've never seen an inspection report that everything is adequate, everything is working properly, that there is no defects, no errors. One very common thing that happens to every one of our homes that you probably did not know, and this was a mistake done when the home was built, okay, likely, and you would have never known, is reverse polarity in your outlets. Yep, that is a fire hazard, guys. It's a safety issue, right? So the inspector is able to test that out. You don't have the equipment. Okay, so you will never know. Okay, unless you tested yourself, you bought the equipment, and you've done it. Or and then sometimes I'm asked, is it a wise idea to have the sellers do a pre-inspection or hire their own inspector prior to listing their home for sale? Yes, it is recommended in some situations, but one thing you need to know is if you do hire an inspector, you need to disclose you did hire an inspector and provide a copy of that home inspection to your buyers or your prospect buyers. Okay. So in other words, when you fill out the seller disclosures notice, there's going to be a section there that's going to say, have you had your home previously inspected? When, who did it, and how many pages was that home inspection report? Again, you need to provide a full copy of that report. So in other words, if you're not planning to do any of the repairs, you're right off the bat letting the buyers know exactly everything that is wrong with your home. And then maybe some agents say that, in this particular case here, I don't think it's necessary. Your home looks like it's in good state. Knowing too much about your home may trigger where you have to disclose it. Sometimes it's good to go blind. That may be the case here, right? Anyways, so but if you have the intent to do those repairs, go ahead and get the inspection report done and use that as a checklist. And then when you provide that with your seller's disclosure notice, you state what you've done and what you've not done into the house. Okay. Again, it's something that you need to be, making plans on when it comes to repairs. Okay. Because whenever a buyer does an inspection himself in the home, he can come back and try to renegotiate that contract. In state of Texas, at least, there is an option period in which the buyer can terminate the contract with any reason, and they usually use that option period to do the inspection. Okay, he doesn't even give you a reason why he's backing out, but it may be that he found something in that inspection. Okay, a repair that you've never took care of, or that was never listed on the seller's disclosure notice, and now they know about, and they don't like it. They don't have they just don't want the house because of those problems. Or they can come back to you and think that this repair diminishes the value, or at least the offer amount of the home that you got under contract. Okay, so they may come back to you and say, "Hey, seller, by the way, I very much like to buy this house for X amount of money, but I do want you to repair this item, or I want you to give me money towards the repair." Okay, so that could come up. Okay, so I am aware that sellers want to maximize their proceeds. Okay, their net proceeds. In other words, make the most money out of selling their home. And then you repair and you do all these kind of things to the house. Maybe that was the reason why you want to leave the house in the first place, because you had just so much things to take care of. You don't have the means, you don't have the money for it, and you just want to get rid of it. You don't have the time, and sell it as is. Sure, that's fine. And there's definitely a way we can put the house in the market and sell it as is. As a matter of fact, a resale home is typically sold as is unless stated differently in the contract. Okay. Um, anyway, so identify repairs and make plans. So you want to definitely work on those repairs that are definitely going to be maybe considered as diminishing of value. Okay. You don't want that seller to think that, that repair is too costly and therefore I'm going to want you to reduce the price or else I won't buy the house from you. Okay. So that could happen. But there's little things that can be done in that house. Okay. The things that are cosmetic, that are not appealing to the eye. Again, very important to sell your home quickly. And for as much money as possible, you need to plan carefully and prepare to show it off to buyers, right? So you want to have to make sure the house have the best curb appeal as possible. That is for sure, okay? So there is definitely going to have to be some planning being done, okay? And that one is identifying repairs, such as sometimes, a drywall have, painter's tapes in some corners, and those tend to crack sometimes. Or nail pops. If you're in Texas, home structures here are built out of wood, so it's a flexible structure. There's always moving. You don't see it, but it's always moving. And also the grounds here in Texas are very volatile, so there is movement going on in the house all the time. So there's a tendency of your structure to shift. Okay, and in drywall, since they're fixed, they're going to sometimes create cracks, and then nails may come out of the ceiling. These are called the nail pops. Okay, so nail pops basically, because they're not using screws, because they use screws in the engineering aspect of things. If you use screws and that home movement happens, that screw can snap. Okay, so they use the nails, and the tendency of those nails is sometimes to wiggle it downward, and then it breaks through that layer of your drywall or that plaster or knockdown that you have in the surface of the drywall, and then you can visibly see maybe a rusted nail head on your ceiling. Well, it is a good idea for you to knock it back in there in place, okay, and then patch it. maybe sanded it down, paint it, make it look good. Okay. But I tell you a couple of things that is notorious that buyers dislike, and I, as a listing agent myself, would prefer that you take care of it. Okay, so there's a couple things. Okay, nowadays all homes are actually going uh, to that modern trend: lighter colors, neutral colors, the grays, the whites, and then your house hardware's more of the brushed nickel oil, or the man, just slipped out of my mind, the that brown looking hardware and the knobs, the oil brown, I forget the name of that thing. Okay, and I sold many of them before, and I can't remember, running a blank over here. But one thing that it is uh, very old fashioned is the gold hardware, the golden fixtures, and the golden doorknobs, or the cabinet knobs golden. And man, those you need to get rid of. I tell you, I recommend that if you want to prepare the home for sale, and you have that gold stuff everywhere, listen. For $50, you buy a set at Home Depot with maybe 4 or 5 doorknobs that are brushed nickel, or even polished chrome is really not that nice anymore, guys. But it may be somebody's taste, and it goes well with the color trends of your home, and that's what you have. Okay, so yes, what you want to do is make sure uh, that at least all your hardwares match. Okay. I didn't do that since I bought the house. Why am I going to do that for the buyer? Well, just so that it looks better. Okay. And then your buyer, your potential buyer, can envision themselves in that home. And one thing for sure, I got to tell you, is that buyers want to do the bare minimum. They want to have a home that is ready for them to move in. Okay. Very few of them is coming into a home, and they're like, but we can do this with the house. We can do this with the house. Let's change this. Let's change that. We can do that. No, very hardly ever. Okay. They want to see the home and picture themselves in that home in the current state as is. Okay. So having the appearance, and or putting it together where it is best appealing for them is ideal. Okay. So the same thing with light bulbs. And this is crazy. I walk into people's home all the time, and there are different color bulbs everywhere. Everywhere. You have the yellows, and you have the whites, and you have the not so whites, and the not so yellows, or homes that are still having condensing bulbs, man. Look, yes, it is quite a bit of money for you to change all the bulbs on your home, LED, and then have just one single color trend all the way through. But it is recommended that you do that little by little. For one, your house is gonna be more efficient when you do that. Okay, get rid of that incandescent bulb, guys. Get rid of it. Okay, that mercury bulb, the CFLs, I guess that's what's called. The mercury bulb, those have a tendency to take longer to warm up and the true color to come out. So if the agent walks in with the client at the same time, and at that point they have the chance to turn on the lights, it's going to take a little bit for the vivid color to come out, and that can be bad. The first impression is always usually the one that stays, where that one single room is naturally darker, but the bulb didn't do anything significant to illuminate that room. And then the first impression is that your home is too dark. Okay, so it is ideal for agents that are listening up right now to come in at least 10 minutes before your appointment to turn all the lights on. Good tip there, right? Okay, or if you are the seller and you're expecting a showing and you were in the home before you left for that buyer to come in and look at your home, to turn all the lights on and leave it on. Okay, if you have that situation, right? Again, you're showcasing your home. You want to make sure that your home is has the best presentation possible. Okay, do not rely on the agent showing your home. Rely on how much you can beautify your home for sale. Okay. Okay, so light bulb is one of them. Yes, switch all the light bulbs that are different colors. Make sure that the entire home have the same colors, okay? The same brightness. Very, very important. I've seen in some cases where the closets or the kitchens, where they have the tendency to being darker, to having the daylight bulbs in there, okay? And then the rest of the home, because you don't like that brightness in your face, you put the soft whites. Okay, I've seen combinations of that before. However, I much rather that you have the entire home the same bulb. And believe me, a color of your bulb can change some the color of your walls as well as the color of the atmosphere. Okay, so good point there. Mirrors. Okay, mirrors. Yeah, you don't want to replace a full mirror, but man, these mirrors sometimes, I don't know what it is that does this. It may be mildew that goes behind the mirrors in the bathrooms, and then they start losing colors on the edges, and it usually starts on the edges. Well, it may be a good idea for you to buy these sticker frames that you can literally cut into size and glue it and frame that mirror and hide those imperfections of the mirror. That's a good tip there for you, okay? But mostly important when you first begin preparing your home is the first action to, again, identify repairs, but also to declutter and clean your home. Yes, declutter and clean your home. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but here I am offending anyways. But there's some of you that do not clean your house very well. I know that happens. And or because you can't afford a housekeeper or a housekeeper never comes by, even if you did it, you don't think that you need one and you go on and not either cleaning your house or just doing the bare minimum. But when you look at your AC registry, it's full of dirty, messy debris and dead skin from you strapped on it, and you want to clean that. Okay, make sure you clean that. Sweep your house very well. Do things that you haven't done before. Again, you never know when you're going to get an extra clean freak buyer coming in your home, and that person may have been the one that had the best potential to buy your home, the one person that's going to offer the most for your home. But he was watching very carefully how you clean your home. Okay, so that's important. So to declutter your home is also important. You want to get rid of everything that you do not need on the way, because space is what people are looking for. Okay, so if you have a room that is not as large as someone would prefer, keeping heavy furnitures and multiple furnitures in that room, or boxes and a bunch of things on the walls hanging around, that may make it feel that that room is much smaller. Okay, so declutter. Take as much things that is not necessary to be there, unless you want to keep it for decoration purposes. Keep it there because you really think it looks good in that room. Go ahead and keep it. But however, otherwise, heavy furnitures, multiple furnitures, it is ideal for you to take it out. So with that said, is while you're decluttering your house, and you don't have enough space in your garage, because by the way, that's the ideal thing to do is, as you take things off of your home and you start putting them neatly organized in your garage. You can use that. It's common in the industry for you to walk up to a garage. Well, it's a garage, but it's full of clutter. Everything that you're already taking out of the house is there. What you don't want to do is make it very messy, because I've seen it too many of them were very, very messy, and it's tough to not look messy. So the other idea is to consider getting a storage um, box, where you can store all this stuff that are personal to you, And the stuff that are not personal and they don't have any sentimental value, just get rid of it, sell it, do a garage sale. Garage sales are very common, for you to do when you're planning to sell your house. That's actually one of the indicators. When you're driving by the communities and you see garage sales, usually is somebody trying to declutter their home, not so much give away or throw out things and make some money out while they're at it. Sellers do spend money in selling. Here you go. We're talking about repairs and spending money in repairing things. Okay. So, so in that sense, storage may be a good idea. Garage sales, it can be a good idea. But it's important for you to declutter. This word's so hard for me. Declutter your home. Okay. And with that said, also because you want to make the house feel more spacious. That's all it's for. Another thing that's good to consider is taking away any personal items. Okay, and that is because there's a lot of privilegists people out there. There's people that are biased, or the people that just that doesn't like your face, and they might choose not to buy a house because they look at your photo and says, "I don't like to buy the house from this person. This person seems dirty." I'm just giving you an example there. I don't feel like I should say this, but I don't think that way. But somebody can. Okay. So take your family pictures away. Oh, but it looks so beautiful. This is what represents who we are. If they don't like it, then so be it. They don't need to buy a house from us. Sure. That's fine. Not a problem at all. I can't force you to do it. Okay. But it's ideal. I'm going to give you an example though. There's going to be photography of done in your house, and those photos are going to be posted online. Yeah, and whatever photos you put it online stays online forever. Do you want your old house to show photos of your kids online forever? Up to you. Okay. All right. Anyway, so take those out. It is important for you to also consider while we haven't experienced here in Texas theft. Typically, homes are always being showings are being accompanied by a real estate agent, so they're always overlooking things to make sure there's no theft. You just don't want to leave your diamond rings or your golden earrings just laying out on top of the countertops. So it may be a good idea for you to consider buying a safe, a small one, keep your personal items in there, or take it away, take it to your parents' house, leave it over there, because there's going to be, especially in this market today, a lot of people walking in and out of your house. And God forbid, we don't want anything to be lost in that transition. Okay. Again, it doesn't happen often, but it can. Okay. So take those personal items away as well. It's particularly weapons. You don't want to leave any weapons around your house. Okay, guys? So if you do have weapons, here in Texas, by the way, you're no longer going to need a license by September of 2021, a license to carry a weapon or purchase one. So yeah, everybody can have one. And I tell you this, don't leave those around. All right. Very good. Thank you. Okay, so organized bedrooms, closets, and storage cabinets is a good idea. The other day I had an open house done in one of them, and forgive me, I had a phone call here from Texas. I'm not going to answer right now because we're in the middle of the show. I was on an open house the other day, and I was doing a video. Some of you may have also seen it on my Facebook feed or on my Instagram. And I showcased the house with the phones and with my phone, and I'm taking pictures out there. Two things that I noted. One, the house wasn't as clean as it was supposed to be for a open house. Okay. They didn't even wipe the floors. Okay. But then I opened closets to see how spacious they were. Oh my God. I mean, they decluttered the house for sure, but they stuck everything inside those closets, and that's a no-no. Okay, I don't like it. It's a terrible idea. Then I went to this person's utility room. Oh my God, man! You couldn't wash clothes there if you wanted to. First, you would have to take all the stuff out. So it seemed like they were in a rush and just pushing things inside the closet. No, plan these things ahead, guys. Store it in the garage, rent a storage room, put it away. Okay, put it away because the person wants to feel at home when they walk in your home. Okay, they want to be able to envision themselves there, and having cluttered closets makes them feel like those closets were not enough for this family and could be not enough space for them as well. Okay, that could happen. Okay, so depersonalizing the home, decluttering the home is very, very important. Now, painting the home is a huge deal. Okay, okay, so you may consider painting your home. You have kids, and I know how they are. They run their hands on the walls. They just ate. They didn't wash their hands. They run their hands on the walls, and there's hand marks everywhere, or their foots, or the dog. That some dogs, they like to walk around the walls, scratch their back, and that marks the walls too. So all sorts of things. Your kids throw things on the walls, or even yourself bumped it with the furniture, and you have a little crack or scratch or something in there. There's so many things can damage your walls. For one, when you buy it new, they put these flat paints that are unwashable. So, and even when you try to wash it, it's even worse. Okay, so if you haven't painted your house at least once, it's very possible you still have flat base paint on your walls, and that's a nightmare. Okay, so what happens is that a lot of times, these sellers go and say, or a real estate agent just gives them a quick tip and says, you just touch up your home. I can't stress how much is terrible to see a home that has been recently touched up. Okay, let me tell you something. It's real, real hard to match a color. Okay, and most of the homeowners don't have the color codes. And even if they did, they go back to Sherwin-Williams or Benjamin Moore, whichever is the paint company you like using. Okay, I don't think Pittsburgh is around anymore. So it would be most likely Sherwin-Williams or Benjamin Moore, Floridians, Benjamin Moore, Sherwin-Williams, Texas, a little bit more. Their machines need to be calibrated every day. So whenever you're back there, they use a digital capturing machine, okay, that captures the color tints for that color, gives you the best match to match that color. They throw it in their machines to shoot the tints into the base of the paint can, right, the base there. And they try to match it as best as they can with that. Home Depot does that too. Okay. Oh yeah, forget Home Depot's Bear. It's another one. Some of them match quite well, but some of them don't. Okay. You see, this wall here, because I've changed a couple of things in it, it's already in need of a little bit of repair. I have to put a little putty there, maybe touch up here and there, but I don't touch up. If you're going to touch up your home, I highly recommend it. Okay, if you're doing it yourself, okay, I highly recommend it. That if you need this wall to be better looking and cleaner, paint the whole wall. You don't need to paint the whole room. Paint the whole wall. I call it the panels. Okay, don't just brush it in this one spot because they're going to be visible. And there's nothing worse than walking in the house and looking at a bunch of brushes everywhere. Believe me, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And that's going to make it so the buyer that's interested in your home going to think, man, I'm going to have to repaint this house. Therefore, he can come back to you and say, hey, look, we like the price, but we feel like we need to renegotiate and you give me a paint allowance because I'm going to have to paint the entire house. Okay. And believe me, it can be pretty expensive to paint the entire house. If you were to hire it, and at least in this market here, it's $400 to $600 per room. That's the usual quotation that they give you. Of course, it depends on the size of the house, how many rooms you have. But so it can be north of $3,000 for you to paint the entire house. Especially like myself, I have 20-foot ceilings here in my house. If you were to paint that, I mean, it's going to cost a lot more than $3,000 to paint my house entirely in the inside. So it may not be in your budget, it may not be what you're considering to do, in order to list your home for sale. Again, you want to profit as much as possible in selling your home. So the more you spend up front is the less in your net proceeds. So therefore, you want to touch up, but instead, the hacks I'm giving you today is paint the whole wall, in that one panel, that one section. See, typical on kitchen bars, you know, the countertop, the kitchen breakfast countertops, that bottom drywall, just paint the whole section. If you don't have to do everything, you know what I'm saying? Oh gosh, my entire house needs touching up. Oh, by all means, man, try. Do your best to make that house look the best as possible. Okay. I'm just giving a tip here. If you're going to touch up, just brush up where you have a marking in your wall. Make sure the paint is matched well. And 99% of the time ain't gonna be, it won't be 100%. I can tell you 99.9% of the time it is not 100%. Just saying. Okay, so paint where it's needed best, that's for sure. Another thing that I like to touch here is your curb appeal of your garden. Okay, so it is ideal. Your agent should be telling you this. If you don't do this regularly, this is a time where you want to buy new bags of mulch. If your home is structured that way, I mean, you might be living in a condo, so that doesn't apply to you. You might be living in a townhome that the exterior of your home is actually taken care of by the association, and you don't have to cut your grass up front or do anything about it because it's part of your association dues, your maintenance. Okay, so in the case that you are in control of your front garden or your backyard garden, okay, it is a good idea to put fresh mulch, have fresh cuts of the grass. If you have dead spots in your grass, it may be ideal to contract a yard person to come in and lay out some sod, or I don't recommend the Bermuda seeds because having St. Augustine grass and Bermuda seeds at the same time, it doesn't look very nice. Okay, you either all Bermuda or St. Augustine, and everybody has different tastes. I actually prefer St. Augustine look. Okay, the thicker, the thicker and the longer, the stronger looking grass. Okay, the Bermuda is that flimsy little tiny pin. It's very light color. I like my strong and dark green grass. Okay, that's what I like on my grass. So if you have patches to do, that may be a good idea for you to do it. Believe it or not, the appearance, the curb appeal, the first impression, that impact you have when you walk up in front of somebody's house is huge in selling their home. Okay, it's huge. People are unfortunately driven by how they look, right? So their front of their house is the appearance of a good looking house inside. So the nicer the front is, likely the nicer the inside of your home is as well. So that could happen. Okay. So Okay, so you've done everything we're talked about right now. You repaired certain things. There are maybe ideal for you to repair. If you have dog damages, wood dog damages, in your stairs or your window cases or your door scratches, maybe hire a handyman to come in and brush that off, paint it, repair it, get those things done. If your water heater haven't been working for a long time, or you're having issues with that, repair that as well. It's a good idea to have every year do a AC maintenance call on your equipment. Okay, hire somebody to come and service it, to top it off with Freon if it's necessary. And that way you can show it to the buyers that you have the best intentions possible. You're trying to make sure the house is in really good shape. 9 out of 10, they're going to ask you to service the AC based on the inspection report. So just go ahead and you can just go ahead and do it. Good idea is to maybe have a seller's home warranty service done before you list your home. Therefore, if the inspection comes up with any issues that you are not aware of, the hot water is temperature is good enough for you, but they may be looking like the inspector may say that the it's not heating as supposed to be heating, so therefore you should service or replace your water heater. You know what I mean? So in that case, you already have a home warranty for the seller side available. Then it will be less costly for you to repair that item by just paying a copay. Are you familiar with home residential home warranty services? There's hundreds of them out there. Hundreds of them out there. You pay them a $500 a premium a year one time, and then you can. They're going to cover your AC. They're going to cover your water heater. They're going to cover plumbing issues, electrical issues as well. You can for a minimum copay, usually $50 to $70 per call. They will send a contractor over to repair those things. That it could cost more to repair it if it's not covered by their plan. Sometimes there are parts or full replacement may not be covered. So you want to check in, you want to check those services out there. Very useful if you're trying to sell your home and you don't want to be surprised with a huge AC replacement or a huge water heater replacement bill, and you have those already in place. They're only good for things that you are not aware of, catch by surprise. But I'll give you an instance here. Let's say you've done all that we talked about today, of repairing your home and preparing a home for listing, and all of a sudden, like it happened to a lot of people here, the Texas freeze earlier this year, some pipes burst, or your water heater breaks down. You're already under contract. The person is just waiting for their financing to be ready to go, and within a few days, 20 days or so, maybe 5 days from closing on the sale of your home, your water heater goes out. What do you do? Okay, you don't have much time. You can't find a contractor because the contractor is busy with everything else, or they're too pricey, whatever that is. So having that home warranty service kind of gives you the peace of mind that if any surprises were to come up during that 30-day period or whatnot, that you're waiting for the buyer to finalize their financing, okay? You have that service ready to go that you can call, pay a $70 copay, okay, and get a contract over to repair or replace your water heater without you having to come up with thousands of dollars to repair anything. AC can go out. Yeah. At this point, you're responsible to turn in that home exactly the same way of which when you signed and dated that seller disclosure notice, or that person visited the home, or when they signed the contract. The condition need to be the same, but things can change in a couple of weeks after you sign a contract, or maybe even in the last days. How many times all the listing agents over here or buyers that experience the situation, how many times something defected just the day of or day before the closing of your home? It could happen. Okay, to keep this under an hour, I have only 7 minutes left, and very few other tips here real quick. If you have dogs, and you're planning to keep them in the house, well, make sure that they're in a crate and put signs on the door. Put signs that says, there's a dog here, be careful, don't put your hands on it. Okay? It is your liability if your dog hurts somebody. All right? You must say this. Again, I'm not a lawyer, and I can't really say that it's true, but I've heard cases that you are liable if your dog hurts somebody, if you didn't properly notify somebody that there is a dog that is dangerous and they can bite somebody, okay, in the house. So ideally, you want to take the dog away, okay? And by the way, if you have dogs in your house, don't post a note on the door that says, take your shoes off. I don't want to walk in your house with dog hair going in my socks. please. Thank you. All right. But also, there may be, there's some sellers that like to put notes everywhere. And you can, on the backyard, you can put a little note on the door that says, we just recently did this and that to the backyard, or do not enter in this location because there's a dog in there. You know what I mean? So notes are good. Create a checklist of things that you want to do, and ask your real estate agent any more ideas in regards to pets and how to put any notations in the home for your guests. Okay. Nowadays, all of us are sort of recommending that you leave it near the door, a hand sanitizer, so they can clean their hands before they go in. Some agents are going to provide that for you. Okay. Put a little desk, a little table with hand sanitizer, maybe some shoe coverings. That's a good idea. Remember, we're talking about the hair on your foot from the dog. Well, sometimes, you just washed your carpet and you don't want anybody to walk in there with rubber shoe, non-rubbery shoes. If you just shampooed your carpet. By the way, this is one thing you should be doing: shampoo your carpet. Um, Anyways, if you have leather shoes, that leather shoes, if the carpet is still a little bit wet, it can stain your carpet. Okay. So yeah, shoe covering is a good idea. Your agent should be able to provide you that service as well, at no cost to you, unless you want to do it yourself and have something nice and a little nice basket in the front door and a sign that says, please put your shoe covers in before you walk in. That's a good idea. But anyways, preparing a home here is also for a photo shoot. And I'm going to use my last 4 minutes because I want to stay under an hour. Photo shoot. Okay, so there are many instances where the photos are ridiculously bad, and many instances that your agent is either taking photos with their own cell phone, or they hired a bad photographer. Don't do that. Please do not do that. Okay, when it comes to photography, it is important that the photography is the best representation of what your home looks like in person. I do despise the photos that are also cheap. The buyers are looking at a computer or on their phone and cheating, that making them feel like the home is a palace and it's really gravy. And then when they come there, there's damages everywhere and dirty things on the walls and blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, in that case, some of these photos can definitely hide. And there are lenses much like the one I'm using right now that can expand an angle of a huge amount of angle, and it makes all the rooms look bigger. That's useful. I use those lenses as well, and it's okay. But in some cases, your houses are very, 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 very small, and we can tell by square footage, anyways. Those lenses are going to make it look very big. Okay, so when you come in person, you don't want to be shocking, okay, or a surprise that what you showed on your pictures weren't true. Okay, so some homes are photogenic and some homes are not photogenic. Therefore, you want to have a really good photographer out there. Depending on your home size or value, it is ideal for you to have great photography done. Okay, there are all sorts of services out there today. If you're selling a home vacant, there are photographers out there nowadays that does 3D rendering, and they do put furniture for you in those photos to look like to make it so that buyers can see how this home will look like when there were furniture in it. Okay, there are also 3D modules that basically makes it so that someone can virtually walk your home without being present. Okay, that is also available out there. There are drone shots, and I think almost every single photographer nowadays need to offer the drone shots. Okay, and those drone shots gives a great visibility of how your home looks in the exterior of the home, and maybe perhaps taking photos of the community itself, like the pool area, the common areas, the splash pads. You know, that's really good to have. I think to see the shape of your lot is also really good. Have an idea to how the conditions of your roof looks like on those photos is a good idea. Okay, so and then it may be case situations that you don't want to showcase a whole lot of your home because you rather have this person to have you know the best regards of your home when you're in person. In other words, the impressions are done mostly when in person. Sometimes, for instance, you want to avoid taking photos of let's just say your home is gorgeous, it's beautiful, but it has a small closet. Don't take photos of that small closet. It's fine. I don't think you're cheating. You just want to make sure that the buyer, have the ability to see the entire home in person, and not be lured away by that one closet. Okay, because maybe they can envision themselves in that home and not so much care for that closet. Because again, guys, no home is perfect. All homes are going to have issues. Okay, so therefore, um, you can't expect the house to be 100% all the time. It's particularly when you do inspections. I see so many times folks looking at inspection reports and going absolutely crazy and berserk, ballistic, whatever words you want to use it, with the items coming out of there. Every home is going to have a large list. And I say you want to focus on things that are, if you're on the buyer side, focus on the structural things, things that are going to diminish value. Safety is really important as well. If you have cracked windows, sellers, you want to replace those cracked windows. Okay, that sort of thing. So the takeaway here is, use this information as much as you can to prepare your home for listing, or contact your local real estate agent, your listing agent. If it is not myself here in Houston, someone else that can assist you through the process from beginning to the time where you get your funds from selling that home, okay? Or you turn over that key to someone else, okay? But anyways, if you like what you hear, please again subscribe to my channel. It's very important to me if you give me your thumbs up if you like it, or thumbs down if you don't. And if you don't, it would be nice to have some comments, anything that you can tell me to make this a better uh, podcast. I would really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time, guys. It is also always very nice to have you on board, and I'd like to invite you for our next podcast. Please contact me and let me know whether you are available. But if you make an appointment with me, please be sure to make it, okay? Unless, of course, you had another reason, a good reason for it to cancel it with me, I will understand. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.